Welcome to another episode of The Green Bottom Line. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something that might just be, well, Australia's quietest but potentially most impactful move in finance lately. We're talking about the Australian Sustainable Finance Taxonomy. Forget those vague environmental promises. This thing, it's like a precision toolkit. It's designed to take those big net zero goals and turn them into actual, concrete, measurable steps for every dollar invested. We've got a really detailed look at its core ideas and, how it's set up to fundamentally change the financial landscape.
That's exactly it. This isn't just some abstract policy paper gathering dust. Think of it more like a comprehensive framework,
Yeah.
really carefully built. Its job is to classify economic activities, could be assets, projects, facilities, even specific actions, activities that genuinely contribute to environmental sustainability, the core purpose, to speed up the flow of capital strategically towards activities that are truly green or genuinely transitioning right across Australia.
And the potential impact seems huge. This taxonomy, it promises to make it simpler for financial institutions to spot real investment opportunities and to give both financial and, well, non-financial companies more confidence in their sustainability claims. Is that right?
Absolutely. Clearer confidence. Plus, fostering consistent, comparable information across the whole market.
Well, yeah.
And ultimately, this should help cut down transaction costs, too. Less ambiguity, less due diligence needed, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's a massive undertaking, no doubt. And it's got solid backing from the Australian government's own sustainable finance roadmap.
Okay.
And what's really remarkable, I think, is the sheer amount of collaboration that went into creating it. This wasn't just dreamed up in some back room. It had input from a huge range of stakeholders, consortiums of technical experts. It really shows a kind of shared ambition across government, finance, industry.
That makes sense. It needs that buy-in to work, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, you had people from places like the Commonwealth Bank, Uni of Queensland Business School, Australian Retirement Trust, even the ACTU, the Council of Trade Unions, and the National Farmers Federation, all feeding into it. That kind of diversity, it really strengthens the foundations, makes it more practical, more credible.
Yeah, that level of buy-in, it makes it feel much more substantial than just another document, you know? So, okay, if this whole taxonomy is about guiding investments, how does it actually break down what sustainable means in practice? What are its main goals? And how does it classify things?
Right. It's built around 6 key environmental objectives.
Yeah.
These were chosen and defined very carefully based on Australia's specific environmental priorities and international commitments.
Oh, you've got climate change mitigation,
Right.
climate change adaptation and resilience, biodiversity and ecosystem protection, sustainable use and protection of water, pollution prevention and control, and the transition to a circular economy. 6 core areas.
Okay, quite comprehensive, Perry. But the initial phase, the first rollout, has really prioritized climate change mitigation. And that reflects, well, the urgent market need right now for credible guidance. Guidance on spotting activities that genuinely line up with the Paris Agreement's temperature goals, that 1.5-degree pathway everyone's talking about.
Right, the 1.5 target. That brings us to a really crucial distinction, I think, one that often trips people up. How does it actually differentiate between activities that are, green from the get-go and those that are transitioning, recognizing that, well, not everything can be perfectly clean overnight? Is transition just a sort of less strict category, or does it demand real, verifiable change?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it gets to the heart of the methodology. It's quite nuanced, actually. So a green classification, that's generally for activities that are inherently low or zero emissions.
Like solar farms, wind energy.
Exactly, the obvious ones. But interestingly, it also includes activities that might currently be emissions intensive, but they're already high performing within their specific sector, even if there isn't a widely available zero emission alternative just yet.
Ah, okay. So best in class, even in tough sectors.
Precisely. Think about certain types of cement manufacturing, for instance. Even though it's emissions intensive, it can be classified as green if it meets incredibly strict performance criteria, like emissions intensity thresholds consistent with that 1.5-degree pathway. It's about rewarding the leaders. And it also includes what they call enabling activities.
Enabling.
Yeah, things like manufacturing the tech needed for decarbonization, making electrolyzers for hydrogen or solar panels, things that help other industries go green.
Got it. So that's green. What about transitioning then? How does the taxonomy make sure that transitioning isn't just, a loophole for slow movers, but actually represents a real commitment to decarbonize?
Right, good point. Transition applies specifically to those emissions-intensive activities that are actively and importantly, verifiably, decarbonizing towards that 1.5-degree pathway. These are usually existing operations, existing facilities, where finance is being sought specifically to decarbonize parts of the process, especially in sectors where demand is stable or growing, and they have significant Scope 1 and 2 emissions.
Their direct emissions and the power they buy.
Exactly. The key is they have to show a clear plan for material emissions reduction, a credible pathway. And crucially, if there's a new activity starting up and there are readily available low-emission alternatives,
then they should just use those.
generally, yes. They'd be expected to meet the green criteria right from the start. They don't really get the transition label easily. It pushes for adopting the best available technology from day one, wherever feasible.
That nuanced approach to transition is really interesting, makes a lot of sense. But you mentioned it's not just about emissions, did you? There are these do no significant harm criteria, DNSH. What does that actually involve and why is it so important?
Precisely. Yeah, the taxonomy isn't tunnel vision on just carbon. These do no significant harm, or DNSH criteria, are absolutely vital. Basically, they ensure that even if an activity is great for climate mitigation, hitting its targets, it doesn't inadvertently cause significant damage to the other environmental objectives in the taxonomy.
Ah, okay, so you can't fix one problem by creating another one.
Exactly. You can't reduce your carbon footprint, but then, say, trash the local water quality or harm biodiversity. It's a holistic check. It uses both principles-based and, where possible, quantitative criteria. And it looks at potential impacts across all 6 environmental objectives we mentioned earlier.
And there's another layer to that holistic view, too, isn't there? I saw it also includes minimum social safeguards. MSS? What's the idea behind bringing those in?
Yes, the MSS criteria. These are about ensuring that companies involved in taxonomy-aligned activities also stick to key social standards. They're designed to line up with big international standards like the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, the OECD guidelines.
So human rights, labor standards.
Exactly. They encourage companies to proactively look for and address potential negative human rights impacts right across their operations and their supply chains. So that covers things like employment standards, working conditions, preventing modern slavery, gender equality, and really critically, especially for Australia, the rights of First Nations peoples and protecting their cultural heritage. It's about making sure sustainability isn't just green, but also fair and just, equitable.
This framework is clearly incredibly detailed, mind-bogglingly detailed almost. Let's shift from these foundational ideas to how it actually plays out in the real world. Specific industries in Australia. Let's tackle a big one first. Agriculture and land. What does green or transitioning actually look like down on the farm?
Agriculture. Yes, it's a complex one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Globally, it's responsible for a pretty big chunk of greenhouse gas emissions, somewhere between, 13 and 21% between 2010 and 2019. But flip side, it also holds huge potential for sequestering carbon, sucking it out of the atmosphere. In Australia specifically, agriculture's share of net national emissions was nearly 18% back in 2021-2022. And that share is actually expected to grow as other sectors like energy and transport decarbonize faster.
So it becomes proportionally larger.
Exactly. Its main emissions culprits are methane, mostly from livestock, cow burps.
Enteric fermentation, they call it.
That's the one. And nitrous oxide, largely from fertilizer use on crops.
Okay, so beyond the obvious things like maybe putting solar panels on the barn roof, what are some of the more perhaps surprising or innovative ways the taxonomy identifies as properly green or transitioning in farming?
Yeah, it gets much more specific than just renewables. For animal production, for example, it talks about using specific feed supplements or additives, things that actually chemically reduce the methane produced by livestock, or advanced manure management techniques, capturing the emissions from manure to produce biogas or even biochar through pyrolysis.
Pyrolysis, heating without oxygen.
Right. That's it. Creates a stable form of carbon. For crops, it highlights precision agriculture, using things like AI, sensors, GPS to optimize everything soil management, irrigation needs, and variable rate application technology for fertilizers. Basically, putting exactly the right amount in exactly the right place, drastically reducing waste and nitrous oxide emissions.
Very targeted.
Very. Agroforestry is another key one, integrating trees and shrubs within farming landscapes to boost carbon storage. And here's a really specific, nuanced one. Criteria for strategic savanna burning.
Savanna burning. How does that reduce emissions?
It's about controlled early dry season burning, particularly in northern Australia. It prevents larger, more intense wildfires later in the year, which release far more greenhouse gases. And crucially, the taxonomy specifies this should be done by qualified experts, including indigenous fire practitioners using traditional ecological knowledge. It's a very specific place-based solution.
Wow. That's a lot more granular than just plant more trees. Makes you think differently about where your food comes from, doesn't it? Okay, let's pivot. Mining. Hugely important for Australia's economy, obviously. How does the taxonomy approach sustainability in an industry that's often seen, well, as pretty carbon intensive?
Right. For critical minerals, things like lithium, nickel, copper, which are absolutely essential for batteries, EVs, the whole clean energy transition. The taxonomy sets really strict emissions intensity thresholds for the actual mine sites.
How strict?
Companies have to show that their direct emissions and their energy-related emissions, Scope 1 and 2, are actively decreasing year on year. Or alternatively, they have to show that the electricity they're using is super low carbon, not exceeding 100 grams of CO2 equivalent per kilowatt hour.
Which is pretty much pushing them towards renewables, isn't it?
Absolutely. It strongly incentivizes it. The taxonomy lists decarbonization measures like electrifying mobile equipment trucks, diggers, implementing trolley assist systems for haul trucks, switching to grid power if it's clean, or building on-site renewables using low-carbon liquid fuels. And importantly, any mine site that relies on its own captive coal-fired power plant is specifically ineligible for these green classifications. Full stop.
Okay, that's a clear line. Now, this next bit I found really interesting because it looks beyond just the mine itself. You mentioned iron ore. There's a forward-looking requirement there.
Yes, this is quite significant. The taxonomy brings in a requirement specifically for iron ore, but it kicks in later. From January 1st, 2030, any iron ore mining activity wanting to align with the taxonomy must also demonstrate, perhaps through contracts or other evidence, that the ore they're selling is actually going into processes like direct reduced iron DRI.
Which uses gas or hydrogen instead of coal.
Exactly. Or an even better, more advanced process for making low-emissions iron and steel. It really shows the taxonomy is trying to influence the entire value chain, pushing for cleaner industrial processes downstream, not just cleaner extraction, making sure the raw material contributes to broader decarbonization.
That's a potential game changer for a foundational industry like steelmaking. Okay, switching gears again, let's bring it closer to home. Construction, buildings, transport, things we interact with every single day. How does the taxonomy tackle these?
Yeah, these are vital sectors affecting everyone. The main focus here is on decarbonizing buildings and construction. They account for significant emissions, both directly from using gas for heating and cooking, and indirectly from using non-renewable electricity for cooling, lighting, everything else.
Right.
So for new buildings, the green criteria include things like meeting very high energy performance standards, like a 6-star Green Star rating in Australia. Or, in certain regions, requiring new residential buildings to be fully electric or use solar thermal for all their energy needs. High performance from the outset.
And for existing buildings, there are millions of those.
Exactly. Renovations and upgrades can be classified as green if they involve specific measures. Things like installing efficient heat pumps for hot water or space heating, putting in EV charging points, switching to induction cooktops, adding rooftop solar and battery storage, or installing appliances with really high Energy Star ratings. The goal is driving that deep decarbonization across Australia's huge existing building stock, which is a massive challenge.
Okay, so we've covered the principles, the sector details. What does all this incredible specificity and ambition really mean for you, our listener? When you're trying to make sense of sustainability claims out there, this deep dive really highlights an amazing level of detail, doesn't it? And foresight and how Australia's tackling sustainable finance. It feels like much more than just ticking boxes.
It really is. By providing this common, credible standard, the taxonomy helps you, as an investor perhaps, identify genuinely green opportunities with a lot more confidence. And on the flip side, it gives companies a clear framework to demonstrate their transition pathways. It boosts transparency, boosts comparability in the market, which, for investors, means you get better visibility. Visibility of how well a company is aligned with those transition opportunities. And a consistent benchmark for judging their performance over time. It makes it much easier to track actual progress, not just rely on promises.
And it helps you, just as someone interested in this space, understand the concrete, measurable steps being taken towards net zero. You can see exactly how different sectors are having to adapt their practices, their investments. You can look at an investment or a company's claims and see how they stack up against this globally recognized, super detailed framework. It gives you a powerful tool, really, to cut through the noise, to help tell genuine green efforts from, well, greenwashing.
And it's worth remembering, right now, this taxonomy is available for voluntary use. Private sector, public sector, anyone can use it.
Right.
That encourages broad uptake, lets people get used to it without immediate regulatory pressure. However, the government is actively looking at options for its long-term governance and potential future regulatory uses.
Making it mandatory down the track.
Potentially. It definitely signals a strong commitment to embed sustainability really deeply, permanently, within the financial system.
Now, this next point really nails down why this taxonomy is so important right now. Australia's first ever sovereign green bond, $7 billion worth, was issued just last year, June 2024, and the country's mandatory climate-related disclosure rules kicked in on January 1st, 2025. This taxonomy, it basically provides the foundational language, the rule book, for both of those huge market-moving initiatives, gives them a clear, consistent way to classify and report.
Which does raise a really important question, doesn't it? As technology evolves so fast and climate science keeps updating, how does a framework this detailed stay agile, stay relevant?
Yeah, can it keep up?
Well, it's designed explicitly as a living document. It's meant to be updated, reflecting ongoing learning, new innovations. For instance, they're already considering potential future expansion priorities, like adding criteria for adaptation to the physical risks of climate change. It has to evolve to remain effective in a world that's changing incredibly quickly. It's a constant race, really, and this taxonomy is built to try and keep pace.
What an incredibly insightful deep dive into the Australian Sustainable Finance Taxonomy. It really makes it clear that the path to a genuinely green bottom line isn't about vague intentions anymore. It's paved with very specific, very measurable, and constantly evolving actions.
Absolutely. And understanding frameworks like this, even just the basics, is becoming key to navigating the, let's face it, increasingly complex world of sustainable finance. It genuinely empowers you to look critically at claims, to spot the greenwashing, and maybe see the real detailed work that's happening behind the scenes to shift capital towards a, well, hopefully a more sustainable future.
For us, it's been fascinating just to see how one nation is trying to quantify and really accelerate its environmental goals with this level of precision. So maybe something for you to think about after this. How might a unified, super detailed framework like this influence other countries, countries grappling with similar challenges? And maybe what other areas of sustainability, perhaps beyond just the environmental side, might benefit from this kind of taxonomy approach in the future? Food for thought. That's all for this deep dive.